So yesterday I have already started this topic, random forest classifier, and now the recording is also on. So I will be discussing that what is random forest classifier and how should we approach this classifier for solving a particular problem. Let's see what it is. So quickly I will go through the introduction that it is built from the decision trees. Initially, decision trees have a problem. There are lots of problems in decision trees. Mainly these two are there, that they are not flexible when they are about to classify new examples. So when decision tree is made, it has to be made based on some decision. We make the split based on some decision regarding based on the different decision trees. So what I mean to say is there are three different types of decision trees that we have covered. One is ID3 method, the other one is C4.5, and third one is CART model. So we have seen these models in the previous three lectures, and we know that while working with the ID3, we make the decision through information gain. So the logic is that we will check information gain value for all the attributes. Let's say there is a data set, and this is the prediction, but we have 1 2 3 4 attributes that need to be that participate for getting the work done to get the prediction. So we can say that these are the four independent variables. So we will check information gain for all the four variables, and whichever variable is having the highest information gain, we will make that as the root node at the beginning, and then we will proceed from there, and we will make the decisions accordingly that okay, one of the root node is gone. So let's say out of 1 2 3 4, 2 became the root node. So out of 1 3 and 4, after 2 is done, out of 1 3 and 4, decision will be made through information gain. If 3 is having the highest, so 3 will be put here. If 2 was here, 3 will be put here, and then accordingly the split will be made. So that's how basic ID3 works. In C4.5, we worked around the gain ratio. So there was this thing called information gain divided by split ratio, which was the ratio called gain ratio, and we used the same method. We used to calculate gain ratio in C4.5, and whichever had the maximum value, we made that as the root node, and then after that all the divisions were made, the split was done. But for the cart model, we used the third technique, which was called the impurity, Gini impurity. So we used to solve for Gini impurity, and this Gini impurity index gave us the values in form of, let's say, decimal values. But then for Gini, the logic is that the number has to be the smallest. So for these first two, number has to be the largest. जो भी number हमारा in 4 में से will be the highest, the max value will be taken in case of ID3 and C4.5, but minimum value has to be taken in case we are using CART model. So this was the basic summary for decision tree based method in which we used to do the splitting and make all decisions. But then came the random forest, and random forest is built from decision trees only. So there is a connection between these two. That's why I have spent 2 minutes on discussing decision tree. So random forests are built through the decision trees. Decision trees are generally easy to build, easy to use and interpret. But in practice, according to this book called The Bible of Machine Learning, it says trees have one aspect that prevents them from being used as the ideal tool, namely inaccuracy. So generally they are not accurate when we want to do the prediction on a test data set. So obviously when we have a trained data set, we will make a decision tree based on a trained data set, and it will work well. If we ask this decision tree to make a classification on the trained data set or maybe validation, it might work well. But if something has not been seen earlier, let's say from test data set something new has come, for that it might not make the right prediction. So they're also computationally quite expensive, because uh, decision trees are having this large number of training examples, and let's say there are maybe 1 million values, 1 million columns are there. let's say that it is a very big data set, and 1 million columns are there, especially in time series data. In case you want to do stock price prediction, right? uh, so let's say that you want to make the data set for NSE, National Stock Exchange. It started in around 1980. So if you take the data set of last 40 years, and you want to make a prediction that what will be my stock price tomorrow, and for all 40 years you want to, you have the data set of all the 365 days. So these number of values are there, right? There are lots and lots of columns. So if you want to build a decision tree, so you first have to handle all these columns. This huge data set will be very expensive to it will be very extensive computationally. It will take lots of time to make this decision tree out of it, because the data set is huge. So there came this technique called random forest. And random forest, you will see that we take only subset of the full data set. Let's see what it means. So random forest is mainly using the simplicity of decision trees. It is combining multiple decision trees, and it is using ensemble learning method. And ensemble learning can be done for classification and regression using the random forest. So for classification, you will take the what we say, mode, right? So let's say that you are having three models, model 1, model 2, model 3. You want to do some prediction, and it is male female, right? Gender prediction has to be there. So if two models are saying M and one model is saying MF, so the mod of these three values will be M, right? So male will be the winner in this case. So the classification will be male if we do classification by doing the voting. So this mode is kind of voting, right? And then if you take the average, let's say you want to do house prediction, house price prediction, 70 lakh home, 75 lakh home, and 80 lakh home. So if you take the average of all these values, it will be 75 lakh. In this case, we are taking the average, so it is doing the ensembling using the mean value for regression. So basic ensembling method means that you have to do the mode or the mean value based on classification or regression. But then how does this work? So the basic idea is that, let's say you had few points in the data set. Let's say you have, let's say 20 columns are there. Okay, so 20 features are there. 20 columns means 20 features, and 21st feature is my target value, but these 20 will be used. But now I want to take some of the data set, not whole of it. So we will make multiple decision trees. This will be my decision tree 1, this will be my decision tree 2, and this will be made by taking some amount of some sample out of the original data set. So if the data set was 1000 into 20, we will make this decision tree. It will be made using 1000 rows, and those 1000 rows might have the duplicacy, and I will discuss this in detail later on. But this 1000 will be consistent, but this 20 will be reduced, so you might be using only 4 columns instead of 20. So if you are generating 1000 into 4, it will be one of the random forest decision tree, as one of the decision tree out of it. Similarly, you can make other decision trees, and maybe these are 6 decision trees, and these 6 decision trees are generating some outputs. So let's say you are doing gender prediction. The first model says that it is male, second model says it is male, third model says it is male, fourth model female, female, and male. So again, you can easily make the prediction that okay, majority is M, so output will be M. So this is how the basic idea stays behind the random forest. We are making multiple decision trees only. The splits are being done based on ID3 or that cart model. So different models can be used, irrespective of the different models being used. The classification has to be done through ensembling only. Now this is the main idea, this is the main algorithm. So we will be discussing this. The basic idea I have already given, but I will discuss this algorithm step by step. So let's say we have n number of examples and d number of dimensions. This statement simply means that there are d columns and n number of rows, right? So this is n, this is d, and D might be equal to 20 initially, and N might be equal to 1000 initially. So what you have to do is you have to generate a for loop, and for loop means that we will be generating a bootstrap sample B. We will be using B equal to 1 to B. So it means that we are generating multiple trees out of the data set. And in previous slide, you also saw this, that there were 6 decision trees. So let's say my capital B is equal to 6 for now. So we will be running this for loop 6 times. Now you have to draw a bootstrap sample Z star of size n for the training example. It means that initially you had n equal to 1000. I said initially let the n be 1000 and d be equal to 20. So you have to make this sample Z star, uh, and this will be equal to a data set where this 1000 will stay same, but now my m is very smaller than d. It means that we have to select the m variables from the d variables. It means that you have to use only very few columns, not 20, maybe 5 we are using out of 20. So this is my small m, right? And 5 is very small than 20. So this statement stays. So what it means is grow a random forest tree TB to the bootstrap data by recursively repeating the following. So you have to recursively use all these steps and get the work done until the minimum node size and min is reached. So first of all, this step has been discussed. Now you have to pick the variable. You have to pick the best variable out of the selected columns. Let's say column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4. So you have to select one variable out of these 4 by using information gain or gain ratio or gain index that I have already discussed. So maybe you are using gain index. So whichever one having the lowest value of gain index, let's say this is the sequence. So in this case, this is the smallest one. So 2 will become the root node. Okay. If you are using gain index, you have to take care that smallest value of gain index has to be taken. Uh, the final step is split the node into the daughter nodes. Obviously now, because you are using the recursion here, recursion means these 3 steps will be repeated again and again until all the 4 nodes are being put into a decision tree. So this is how all the 4 nodes have to be put, and the decision has to be made. But that's the basic idea behind this step 1. Now step 2 is you have to do the ensembling, and ensembling means that you have to do the average for regression and mode for classification. Very simple to understand. Now this kind of ensembling where we are using this bootstrap sample idea, where we are taking multiple samples and a lower number of columns and getting the work done, this is called bagging or bootstrap aggregating. So uh, this is all that we have discussed in the previous lecture. I have already now taken 15 minutes to go through the things again, but I just wanted to give you an idea because you did not attend yesterday. So I hope you got the idea that we are using random forest, having multiple decision trees in it, taking using the ensemble method and some recursion. So this gets our work done. Now let's take some example to better understand the algorithm. So bootstrap dataset. Now what does this mean? So this is my original dataset where I have chest pain, good blood circulation, blocked arteries, weight, and heart disease. So these are the 5 columns where my heart disease is my target value, and first 4 columns are my independent variables that help me to do the prediction. So this is my original data set, but now bootstrap sample of same size of the training data has to be taken. So four number of rows, right? Uh, from the original data set, such that we are allowed to pick the same sample more than once. So this is very important statement. You can pick the same sample again. In this case, you will see that this 167 value of weight, this one fourth row has been taken twice. So this fourth row has been taken twice. At the third and fourth number, this row has been duplicated, but out of the other 3, this one has not been taken. So the third row has not been taken in this bootstrap dataset. So this was the basic idea I was trying to give you earlier, that while making the bootstrap dataset, you can do some kind of duplication number of rows, but the number of rows has to be the same. For instance, in the figure shown, the bootstrap dataset has been created from the original dataset. Uh, so these things have been discussed that I have already told you. But now generate the random forest using the bootstrap dataset. Uh, so we will be discussing how to implement this thing. Now this 1A has been done. Now 1B. Okay. So 1A, this is actually 1B. So the decision tree is created from the bootstrap dataset, but only use a random subset of variables at each step. For example, figure shown on next slide. We will see again. So what has to be done is we have to initially take only two columns out of the original dataset. So obviously there was a condition of m less than d, right? So it means that you have to take less number of columns. So now what we are trying to do is, so instead of considering all the four variables, uh, we are going to select only two: good blood circulation and blocked arteries. So based on these two values, we will be trying to do the prediction. Now out of these two, we have to uh, for this example, we have assumed that good blood circulation did the best job separating the samples. So I said earlier that we have to do Gini index calculation, or maybe the information gain calculation based on what your selection is. So in this case, we have assumed that good blood circulation is the one having the better value in that case, and the split is being done based on good circulation. But now we need to figure out how to split the samples at this node. Okay, so what we have to do is, just like for the root, we randomly select the two variables. So this blood circulation is gone out of the picture. Why? Because this has already been used to make the split. So for these two locations, we have to use the other three values. So other parts have to come into the picture, and we will have to decide that which one will be taking the place after the good blood circulation. So out of these three, we are taking these two, chest pain and weight. Now out of these two, let's say chest pain is the winner, so chest pain will come here, right? And based on that, we will again take the call that out of this blocked arteries and weight, which one is having. So this kind of sampling will keep on taking the place, and just on the basis of this bootstrap dataset, we started with this, but then we generated multiple things out of it. So right now we are generating single decision tree out of it. So we just build the tree as usual, but now considering a random subset of variables at each step. So the the explanation says, the logic behind this is that you have generated this thing from the starting point, saying that my bootstrap dataset is this one, right? So in that case, we did not use third this third row was not used. Only the other three were used to make the decisions. But now if you change the bootstrap dataset, obviously the tree will change, but the procedure will stay same. Now go back to step one and repeat. It means that make a new bootstrap dataset, that I have already told you that obviously you will have to take a new bootstrap dataset again, and you have to take the decision that now which one has to be the first one, which one has to be the second one. This is a very small dataset. It has only 4 columns. It has only 4 rows. But consider having 100 or maybe 1,000 number of rows and maybe 20 number of columns, then it will be difficult for you to just have only 2 or 3 decision trees. That's why it is written that you should do this hundreds of times. So there must be, let's say, 50 or 100 number of bootstrap dataset, bootstrap tables that will help us to generate multiple decision trees to get the work done. So let's say this was my bootstrap decision tree 1. This was my bootstrap decision tree 2. So like this, 6 different trees were made, and we can do the job. So the step 2 is that now let's say we have this new patient, and this has to be predicted. So what has to be done is you have to take the call based on the first decision tree. You will get the call that okay, for these four values particularly, my decision tree one is saying that the value has to be something, right? Maybe the output for decision tree one is that the person has heart disease, and similarly for decision tree 2, after calculation you might see that I mean, from the prediction of decision tree 2, it might be the case that the prediction is again 1. Similarly, if you have maybe 10 decision trees, in this case they have taken only 6, so I will take 6. So let's say 6 decision tree is giving me again yes, but 3 4 5 out of this only one gave the no value and other 5 gave me the yes value. So based on that, this table will be updated, right? And I mean, based on different decision trees, table will keep on updating, and that has been shown here, that the first decision tree is saying yes, second decision tree is also saying yes, and similarly out of 6, 5 have said yes and 1 has said no. That is very clearly mentioned here. Obviously, due to the lack of space, different all the trees have not been made here, but that's the basic logic behind it. Now estimate the accuracy of random forest. Now how will you estimate that how much accurate my random forest is? Now, while creating a Bootstrap dataset, many entries are not included in any of the Bootstrap dataset. So it might be the case that you have this dataset having four number of uh, maybe four number of rows are there, but and you are generating three Bootstrap uh, datasets, right? And these three Bootstrap datasets might have been made every time. It must have been I mean, it might happen that only these three are being picked again and again. So this is a very small example. The idea is that out of 100 or maybe 1000 rows, it might be the case that maybe 10 or 20 rows are there which have never been picked. Irrespective of you having hundreds of decision trees, there might be a case that something is left every time, even after the randomization is done. So for that, I mean, typically about one third of the original dataset does not end up in the Bootstrap dataset. So this has been written based on the practical work done by people. This is a general saying that one third of the dataset remains untouched even after doing these kind of samplings. So these entries which are not included in the Bootstrap dataset are called out of bag dataset. So let's say there were 1000 rows, and out of this 33% is 333, right? uh, so so let's say 330 values are there which are never been touched, and 670 values have been used every time to make different decision trees. So these 330 values are being called out of bag dataset. Out of bag dataset. So this term has to be remembered. Now this accuracy of random forest is computed on the out of bag dataset. So I mean, the basic reason behind writing this statement is the basic concept behind the ML. What we do in ML, we have train dataset, we have validation dataset, and we have my training, validation, and testing, right? And we generally say that if you are training your model, you will see this on thousands of Kaggle pages. What people do is they train their model, and let's say that they're plotting their accuracy like this, that I mean over different number of epochs. This is how their model is being trained. So this is my training accuracy over number of epochs, and validation will be maybe somewhere near it, right? So this is my validation. But now uh, I will not go into the detail that if this gap is more, overfitting happens. We will consider that overfitting is not there, and these two things are very close to each other. The model has been trained well. But now testing says that this testing has to be done over this trained model. So the basic ideology in machine learning is that let's say you have 1000 rows, you will keep 80 rows or maybe 70 rows for training and validation, right? And you will keep this 20 separate for testing. So you will do your training on maybe 60 out of 80, and maybe you will be verifying it on 20. The validation will be done on those 20. So this data set will come later on into the picture. So that's why in machine learning generally also, when we say that my accuracy is 80%, we do not mean that my accuracy is 80% over the training data set or the validation data set, but we always say that my accuracy is 80% on the test data set, right? So that's why it's written here that my test data set will be the out of bag data set, which has not been used in my training model, and that's why that out of bag data set will be used to calculate the accuracy. So that's the basic reason I have been discussing this basics with you. So the proportion of out of bag samples that are incorrectly classified uh, is the out of bag error, right? So the um, I hope it is clear. Whichever values out of those 20, let's say this was my testing data set, it had only 20 values, so 80% got correctly classified, and we will say 16 out of 20 are correctly classified, but 4 out of 20, which is 20%, were not classified correctly. So this feature, this value of uh, zero point 0.2 will be called my out of bag error. So that's one of the new term. I hope this slide is clear. Moving on now. So how do we tune our random forest? We will go into the tuning part now. So how to determine the optimal number of features to consider at each split point? Consider different values of optimal number of features. Compute out of bag error from all the out of bag samples for each value of optimal number of features, and choose the value of optimal number of features for which the optimal out of bag error is minimum. So the basic idea behind this first point is that my first of all out of bag error should be minimum, right? And you have to consider different values of optimal number. You can obviously experiment with different number of features. You might have selected maybe out of 20 features, you can try 3 features, 4, 5, 6. So maybe you are trying different features, and whichever method gives me the lowest number of out of bag error, that can be my optimal number of features. So this is the basic idea. Second point is how to determine the number of trees the algorithm should build. Now we have been saying that random forest always generates multiple decision trees, and how to take the decision that I have to make 5 decision trees or maybe 10 or maybe 20. So we can do the mode or mean later on to get the classification or regression out of it, but this number of decision trees has to be decided, right? So now in general, a higher number of trees increases the performance and makes the prediction more stable, but it also slows down the computation. Now it's obvious, right? If let's say I am generating 5 decision trees, my average will come out good, right? But if I am having 10 or 20 decision trees, it will be more consistent because it has been verified 20 times rather than only 5. So higher number of trees are good, that's the basic point. But then there is a challenge that it will be slow. Obviously, for obvious reasons, you have to implement 20 decision trees rather than only 5. So you have to build also, right? You have to build 20 different bootstrap samples, and then you will have to make 20 different decision trees based on multiple features, factors, and you will have to make the decision based on the mode or mean. Now this parameter is also computed using the same steps as discussed in point 1. So this can also be tried, right? You can use 5 decision trees, you can use 10, you can use 20. So whichever looks good, you can go ahead with that number. Now the third question says that which features to select at each step. Now how to decide that which feature has to be selected? I have been saying that features are to be selected using the ID3 method, or maybe the what we say ID3 Gini index, all those values. But uh, in addition to that, usually the features are selected at random, right? So you have to select the features at random. That Gini index and everything, they help us in deciding the split. that which one will help, which will be the first split. But how to decide that if I have to select 4 out of 20 features, which 4 will be they? So that's what is being talked about. The features are selected at random, those 4 will be selected at random, but we can also compute the correlation among the randomly selected features at each step and reject the features which are highly correlated. So this is one of the technique. But you can do is, if even if you are selecting the 4 out of 20, those 4 can be tested for correlation, and if maybe it can be the case that 1 and 2 are highly correlated, then you can maybe replace this second feature with maybe 5 number or maybe 10 number. So whichever number you want to pick out of the 20, you can replace that number. So that's one technique. We must also check the correlation between the features and the output variable, as we need the features that have at least some predictive power. So now another angle has been given, that we also should check the correlation of my feature with the final output. So let's say I am going to pick the second feature out of the 20. I have to compare the correlation with my target value, which is at 21 column. So 2 and 21 will be checked. So it should have some predictive power. It should contribute something. It does not be the case that it is not even contributing anything in prediction, in getting the prediction done. Moving ahead, so looking at the advantages of random forest classifier has improved accuracy over the decision tree classifier for obvious reasons. Let's discuss them. Random forest often achieves higher accuracy than a single decision tree. For simple reason, one simple decision tree versus the average of 10 different decision trees, obviously average will be better from different decision trees. So there is one concept called overfitting. Overfitting can be handled easily. So I think it will be coming in this advantages. But for a general idea, if you are training only one decision tree versus you are having different 10 decision trees, and for those decision trees you will make 10 different bootstrap data sets, right? So this kind of thing in which you are taking the samples from the original data, this kind of thing verifies your accuracy in a way. It will help you decrease the overfitting. So if overfitting was happening, it will be decreased by using this technique. So this is due to the reason that it does not consider each training example to form the random forest tree. So it does not exactly generalize the training data and does not overfit. So overfitting is being talked here simply means that because you are not depending on particular features, you are not saying that okay, I have to use all features, but randomly every time I'm being given the different features. So that way it will be helpful for me to make the decision uh, in the less overfitting form. So moreover, it employs some sort of cross validation on the out of bag datasets while tuning the parameters. So simply cross validation means that I mean, we have seen this cross validation earlier also. Cross validation used to mean, let's say I divide my data set into 5 samples, and I am using this first sample as a test data set and 4 others as training data set, and these 4 can be obviously updated next time. So if I am using 5-fold cross validation, so this 5-fold cross validation means that I will be selecting these training and testing randomly every time. So randomly means that you have to select different samples. So these circles means that these are testing data sets, and in a way we are kind of changing my training and testing every time. So you get these 5 models to do the prediction. 1 2 3 4 5 different predictions will be done, and out of that average or voting can be done. So this was also kind of an sampling method, and that has been linked here. So it employs some sort of cross validation on the out of bag data sets. Obviously 5 models, 5 different bootstrap samples equal to 5 different out of bag data sets equal to 5 different test accuracy. So that's what is being talked about here. So they are flexible when it comes to classifying new examples. So random forest is better to classify new examples compared to my decision tree. Now, random forest classifiers are computationally inexpensive compared to my decision tree, where let's say I had 1 million points which had to be plotted on a decision tree. My random forest is plotting multiple decision trees, but only having very few amount of data. I mean, even if my number of rows were equal to 1,000 in that example, I was reducing my columns from 20 to maybe 4. So 20, only 20% data set was being selected in that case. um, so if you're taking 4 columns out of 20, only 20% is being selected. So in that way you are using samples, and that will be very inexpensive and you can quickly get the results. So that is being talked about in this space. So the third feature is that feature importance. Third advantage of random forest, feature importance. Random forest can be used to rank the importance of the variables in regression or classification in natural way. So the first step in measuring the feature importance in a data set is to fit a random forest to the data. So you can obviously start fitting the random forest, and then during the fitting process, the out of bag error for each data point is recorded and averaged over the forest. To measure the importance of the jth feature after training, the value of the jth feature are permuted among the training data, and the out of bag error is again computed. So it simply means that because you are working on multiple subsets, you are generating multiple times, different features are being selected multiple times. So that way you can see that, okay, let's say my feature 1 was selected multiple times, and maybe feature 2, f1 f2 was selected, then 1 and 3 were selected, 1 and 4 were selected. So these kind of combinations will give me some amount of accuracies, right? And in this way I can say if 2 and 3 were also selected, 3 and 4 were also selected, so these kind of pairs were made. But all the predictions having f1 in it gave me, let's say, accuracy more than 80, 81, 82. I mean 80, 81, 82, let's say these are the three accuracies. But then if my feature 1 is missing, my accuracy is dropping to maybe 40%, 50%. So from this kind of scenario, you can say that whenever f1 is being selected, then I'm getting a better accuracy. In a way, f1 is more important than f2, f3, f4. So that's what is being talked about here. You can read and verify. So advantages of random forest. So this is the fourth advantage. Random forest classifiers can also be used to handle the missing values. Now you can also handle the missing values if something is missing in the dataset. Generally, decision trees would have problem working with them, but now because sampling is being done, missing data can also be handled easily in random forest. So whenever there is some missing value in training data, random forest applies general technique. It makes an initial guess and then gradually refines the guess until it is hopefully good. So it starts with a guess and it refines. It will improve every time during the process. It will keep on improving itself to make its prediction or the guess better. So initial bad guess can be the mode for categorical feature and mean for a numerical feature. So that's the very basic instinct. As a human being also, what we do is generally, if there is a categorical feature problem, we will take the mode that whichever is having the maximum value, we will pick that value as the missing value, and we can fill in there. And if you want to replace the value in a regression or a numerical feature, then you will use the mean value or the median value and put a value as a missing value there. So now the guesses are refined by finding samples which are similar to one with the missing data. So yeah, I mean, you can make it out what it means. So in order to determine the similarity, following steps are to be followed. So this is how my random forest has to be built. So build a random forest and then run all the data down all the trees. So once you are making the random forest having multiple decision trees, go through all the data points, note the samples that end up at the leaf nodes. So I mean, take note of these things, that which samples are coming out as the leaf nodes. keep track of the similar samples using a proximity matrix. So this proximity matrix is very important thing. We will discuss this. So it will be discussed in next lecture because very less time is left now. So we will discuss the proximity matrix and we will discuss the example in detail, but let's complete the slide. So now what's being done is we have to handle the missing value. So that's what is being talked about in order to determine the similarity. um and similarity means that because you have to fill the missing value, this has to be done. First you have to build a random forest, then you have to go through all the data points, then you have to make this proximity matrix, then finally divide each entry in proximity matrix with total number of trees. So this has to be done. This is being done in the next, in the coming slides in an example, but I will explain this in detail later on. So using the proximity values to make the better guesses about the missing data, that is calculated weight frequency of each value using the proximity values as weight. So I mean, proximity values will be used out of the proximity matrix to make the decision that which missing data has to be filled. I mean, how the missing data has to be filled. And repeat this 5 and 6 point, actually 4 and 5 point, uh, until this missing value converges. So once it converges, convergence means that when the missing value is coming out to be the same every time after some predictions, it might be the case that the in the initial stages your value is being updated every time using this proximity matrix, but after some steps your value will be consistent, and after maybe 2 or 3 attempts, if the value does not change, then it is the then it is converging to a single point. So we will discuss this example in the next lecture. It will take 5 or 10 minutes to discuss this, so I will not start explaining this example, but we will be discussing this and we will be filling the missing values at this point. We will be making our guesses. We will be using this technique that has been discussed here. We will plot, we will make the proximity matrix. It will look something like this. So this is the proximity matrix, and we will be generating this proximity matrix and get the work done. So that's all for today. We will continue this topic in the next lecture. If you have any doubt, you can post it in the WhatsApp group that we have, and we will continue from that point. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.